and to support all of you. I understand that we are all on at a different point in our journey. If it is hard to live in under anticipation, and at the same time we are required to perform as if life goes as normal. And sometimes that can be also a life-saving point. It can bring even some sanity that we have something to do, because having too much time to think can be also really challenging. And the idea for today's session is to really share some skills that can help you to make sense out of what is happening with your maybe related to some of your mental processes, emotional processes, and also how to share some tips and tools. For that, I would really need maybe your input. We are all at a different point in our practice, and also what is happening in our lives. So some feedback on how you are, what kind of questions you have related to practice would be really helpful, so I can give a more specific direction. Just a short, I was thinking on how to give a little bit of sense about my philosophy, or the philosophy of the practice. I started the journey by actually beginning to practice internal martial arts. And it started with Tai Chi. I began in 1999, and I found a teacher who was a referee in Chinese Wushu Association. So very soon after I began my practice, she actually started to prepare me for competitions. And I used to practice on one of, at that time, one of busier crossroads. So I would actually perform my Tai Chi sequence while cars were passing by, and passengers were, or like pedestrians were just coming forward and looking at my face, and I was supposed to do my sequence without any interruption. So I really highly appreciate what she has done for me at that time, because it really gave me the sense of what it means to be grounded no matter what happens outside, the noise, the comments, the movement, and so on. And as I was practicing with her somewhere at earlier times, I was asking her about the kind of like the purpose of the practice, what it all brought to us. And she said, well, the purpose of the practice is to find the space when we can be present and be so connected that everything that is happening in the moment, we know exactly what is going on. And then she also said, but you know, if you manage out of maybe a 20-minute sequence, or however long it goes, to hold that presence for 3 seconds, then you will be a master. And I thought that was all ridiculous. 3 seconds just seemed like nothing, right? Like, and then I asked her, well, how long will it take me to come to that state? And she said 10 years. And of course, there was no encouragement whatsoever that it was something to be easily achieved. And eventually I managed to let go of that objective to become a master, and realize that there is no such a thing. But this curiosity about holding presence, and eventually from Tai Chi and internal martial arts, I explored also mindfulness that brought elements of awareness that comes with that. So that kind of like shaped my practice. And this is what brings me here to share with you also how can we continue to bring presence, and also grounding presence, at the times when there's a lot of distraction. And even if you are at your own home and there is no busy traffic, you don't need to rush physically from one meeting to another. We are facing our own mind, and also technology, because we are moving from one meeting to the other virtually, which is also like standing on a busy crossroad in many ways. The one aspect of coming to this presence is to really give ourselves an invitation. We are not naturally going to remember to do that, at least at first. And if this is happening, it's really normal. So often we will remember that we should have done it at a point when we are already so tired that sitting kind of like in meditation is really the last thing we want to do. Maybe we want to just switch our mind off. Often we go into the maybe some other distracting strategies, like going on the phone or watching some movies and so on. And why does that happen? So there's other topics that go around that, right? Like, let's say, why do we connect with emotions a little bit deeper if we stay to meditate a little bit longer? And this tricking the mind is also a very interesting concept. So I'll start from that, and then maybe we see how much time we have, and we'll do a few practices. So first, I want to explain a little bit how brain works and why is it so challenging for us to just stop thinking. We have in between two our hemispheres of brain hemispheres, there's a connection that is called default mode network. And what they in 70s they did a research where they were monitoring activities when people were resting. So actually they put kind of like electrodes on the head and then ask people to sleep. And they realized the moment our eyes closed, actually this default mode network is engaged. It becomes very active, which means that our brain, our mind never rests. When we think that we are resting physically, not doing anything, this is actually the time when this part of the brain really activates. And this will happen always when we close our eyes to meditate as well. So if you ever try to meditate and you notice that you are flooded with thoughts, it doesn't mean that you're not skilled in meditation. It actually means that you have a human brain. It's just a normal process. So there are three functions of the default mode network. So one is to create sense of self. So we can say maybe the default mode network could be also the home of ego, right? So it keeps interpreting situations so that we kind of like know who am I in relationship to the world and every single thought that I'm having, right? So that is one. The second one is that continuously reflects on situations that happened either in past or future. So it's not related to the present moment. It's going to be the aspect of the mind that is going to directly go against your attempt to be present. And the third aspect of this thinking modality that our mind has is that default mode network is going to consider primarily what is wrong, where are the risks, what is negative about the situation. So we are wired to think negatively. We are wired to pay attention to what is wrong. So, and we are also wired to survive. We are not wired to be happy, calm, and peaceful. This is not our intrinsic kind of like setting. Unless we had a lifestyle and upbringing that really nourished this calm and presence. So then those are few lucky people who had that. However, at the moment we are going through a very obvious sense of danger in our environment. We are bombarded with news of what is going wrong with the world. We are constantly waiting for something bad to happen. And of course, our whole system is demanding us to continuously look into some strategies related to how do we make ourselves feel safe in future, right? Based on what we experienced in the past. So this part that was mentioned, tricking the mind, is exactly what we need to do. Now, tricking the mind actually means to trick the autopilot. Autopilot mind is the one that is going to happen on its own, and for this we don't need to sit for 20 minutes. Actually, 2 minutes prompts are a really good way to start. 2 or 3 minutes of presence and grounding will enable you to set your mind into something that is achievable, energizing. It will give you the sense of accomplishment, and it will also enable you to really have these regular breaks that you can do. And you can do 2-minute grounding practice anywhere, even in the meeting. You don't need to close your eyes. All it takes is to remember and connect with one or few of your senses, which means visually you can engage the taste. It's like, just even if you had coffee, you can just roll your tongue, let's say, and bring the taste from your mouth. That is going to help you kind of like notice, oh, I had this food, and that is enough. It's just few breaths as well. So breathing, sensing the breath coming in, listening to the sound, either of the person that is speaking. Like right now, you can just bring attention to the quality of my voice, to my pitch, my accent, if there is anything that particularly stands out for you when I speak, and really engage, not giving it a meaning. So this is the part that is important when we are engaging with the present moment, is to disengage from interpreting of what we are experiencing. Because you can, let's say, while you're listening to my voice, you may be thinking, where does she come from? I heard this accent before, or maybe she's from Europe, or maybe she's from this part. And this means that your mind is wandering. It means that you're using your past experience in knowing somebody's language and interpreting it into labeling of where I come from. So when you notice that, you would just disengage and let those thoughts pass by. It doesn't mean you can't ask later, but if you want to engage in the grounding presence, then you would let go of wanting to interpret and give the meaning. So 5 minutes practice is really fantastic. If you manage to do 5 minutes practice every day, that's already a great brain gym that is going to support you. Eventually, what happens with this kind of presence and the pause is that your wiring of your thoughts, the way how your brain computes information, is going to begin to shift from going through the regions that are related to risk consideration and response that is based on, let's say, panic or high emotional trigger. Is going to shift into the different part of the brain, which is prefrontal lobe, which is our executive brain, and is going to get you into the space of first awareness and then choices. So once when you're aware that emotions are present, or that you're experiencing fatigue or anything like that, you can make a choice on what you want to do. And now I know that this can be for some exactly the information that you're needing at this time in your life, and for some this could be confusing. If you're confused, then just give yourself space to be confused. It's okay to be confused. And if you're receiving something that is giving you direction for practice, then just acknowledge that you received some information as well. I would like to take us into the practice for a 2-minute practice that I've been recently connecting with. It's going to be actually a set of 2 or 3 modalities that I'm going to ask you to engage your focus and invite your mind into presence, and then we can see what arises, and if we have a few minutes also for questions, and then I will let you go on with your day and apply this. So are we all ready? Yeah? All right. So take a comfortable position and maybe shuffle in your seat. So first, check in with your body. Is there anything that you need to do right now to allow your body to be a little bit more present? And I will lower my chair a little bit so I can really feel my feet flat on the floor. And then let yourself just tap with your feet on the floor. It's kind of like let your feet tense a little bit so that your mind receives the information that that is where you want to pay attention to. So it's almost, imagine that your toes are being, you have 10 friends who are calling you to go and visit them right now. So wiggle your toes and let your mind feel each toe with awareness of what kind of sensations you are experiencing there. And let yourself do that without giving any meaning to it. So if you notice that there is an interpreter in your mind that you're trying to explain what you're experiencing, let your thoughts go gently, just for now. Letting yourself also experience that it's safe not to think, just for this minute and a half. And now notice your hands, and you may even bring your hands together and just let your tips of your fingers connect. And connect softly so that you're just feeling the support and slight tension between your fingers, where each fingertip connects, or one hand connects within the tips of the other. You may then gently use one hand to scroll or just roll down towards the palm and circle over the palm. Just sense how that is. It could be a little bit of a tickle you may experience. So hands are very sensitive. They take a lot of engage a lot of our brain capacity. And generally connecting with feet and hands is really giving the sense that our whole brain is engaged. And then rest for a moment now, holding your tips of your fingers together and then curling your toes. And notice how at the same time you can hold attention to both. Just feeling, just sensing. And then let yourself scan your whole body just for a moment and notice if there are any muscles that may be experiencing some tension, and let them soften a little, as if you're covering them with lukewarm water. So they can soften and let them land into your feet again. For those who are connected with the practice of breathing, you can also notice the breath coming in and out. And your rib cage is opening and closing as the breath comes in and out. And then releasing this attention and coming back to the circle and presence with everyone. You can disengage your fingers and your toes as well. And congratulations, we already exceeded our time limit. And not only we were meditating, but we meditating even more than 2 minutes. And just notice how are you feeling. Your mind will want to race back perhaps in a moment, but just for now stay present with exactly as you are. And so we have 5 more minutes. I would just like to give you a quick chance to either write in the chat how was this for you, or to ask a question. Maybe we have a question, a space for 1 or 2 questions if anybody would like to be curious on taking this further. And as a checkout, maybe a 1-word checkout, how was this practice for you? Is this something that you could take into your daily routine?
Hi, can I ask a question about what exactly the definition of grounding here mean in the context of the meditation?
Wonderful. Yeah. So grounding would mean stabilizing. It would mean that we, let's say, our mind has the tendency to fly away. So it's literally, if you know, like we have the on houses, you would have for how do you call it, for the lightning rod, right? So it would actually kind of like channel all the electricity into the ground of the house. So in the same way, what we are doing, we are using presence. Our feet are the grounding element of our mind, creating all the electricity, all the motion, because what mind thinks, body responds. Our body doesn't know if mind is faking, if it's imagining, if it's thinking about real things or imaginary. It just follows, right? So because of that, we somehow need to release this responsiveness of the body, so that the body can find the time to rest. And the body can't find time to rest unless our mind rests. And the easiest way for us to find that grounding presence is to go from the furthest point away from the head, where the brain is, right? And that is our feet. So when you're in doubt, basically just tap your feet on the floor and you will invite your mind to come there. It's just for a few breaths, right? And that will be resting already. Yeah, it's a great question. So do not interpret. What about describing? Warm, soft. That's a great question. Yes, describing is one of the traits that we develop through the practice of mindfulness. So when we want to describe, we use exactly that. We use these simple words: warm, soft. Even if I'm realizing there are so many thoughts, then I can describe, thinking. And just instead of analyzing my thoughts, I would just actually use, let's say, noting. It's called in mindfulness practice. I'm noting that I'm thinking. So, and that is enough. So simplifying the language is really, really important.